Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. You know, today is not exactly, but really, really close to our fourth anniversary. So we've been doing this almost every Thursday, not quite every Thursday. We don't do it Thanksgiving or Christmas, but almost every Thursday for 4 years. So it's only appropriate that we have all of our hosts back on here with me today. So joining me today is, let's start with Lily. Lily was here from the very, very beginning.
I was.
I have that video. I was going to look it up. I still need to look it up and like cut a clip out of it or something just to
Yeah, see
share
how
next
bad
week
we
with
were. Yeah.
how it started.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as polished back then as it is today.
No,
And
I think
also joining me are our new and improved, well, not necessarily improved, but our new co-host, Colby Pitts, who's our Hernando County, Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator. Good morning,
yes,
Colby.
Good
finished
morning.
something.
Colby always has the best backgrounds. I need to work on mine. My office, well, I don't know. I have stuff on the wall, so it's not too bad. And also our master gardener, Bernie, the man with all the answers to all the really hard lawn and garden questions. Good morning, Bernie. How are you?
Good morning.
He has all the answers to all the hard questions, but if you get to know him and spend a lot of time around him, you'll find out it's always the same answers. Because it is just the same answers. That's what they are.
Yeah, out of all the
Unfortunately,
questions
that's
I get,
true.
a lot of them fit into the bucket of the same stuff. I've seen it time and time and time and time again.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this being spring, uh, very end of March, I have to look down at the date on my computer screen here. We're seeing all the same springtime insects and lubber grasshoppers. The tussock
Tussock moths.
caterpillars are coming out. All the same stuff every year. But then
I
some
got
things we'll get a question or a picture, and it's like, I've never seen that before. So we have to go track down an expert in that area and get up.
That's what makes it fun. That's what makes it interesting and worth it. That's why Bernie keeps showing up. Because if he is not entertained, he's not going to keep showing up.
You know
There was
that
there was
my
a name.
favorite thing was citrus because there's only two rules you had to remember, and you covered every citrus question there was. First, if you see it, it's too late to treat it, and second, it's either going to get better or it's going to die, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to intervene. So, with those two answers, you got it made. And all the rest of the stuff is on nothing but fill. So, uh, if everything was that simple, there wouldn't be any Bernies around. They wouldn't need them. But it is fun to have something that goes like that. So,
Yeah.
and,
There
and
was a name that Bernie was called by one of the directors. He was a knowledge, never mind, but someone who puts themselves out there to obtain knowledge. That's what.
A knowledge advocate.
There we go.
And we kind of all are. I mean, I learn
Yeah.
new things every day. And
Yes.
there's so many new things that happen. New invasive insects and diseases and new invasive plants and new problems. We just had a uh, video presentation a week or two ago, and we showed the video at our Master Gardener meeting, I believe this past Friday, on a new invasive species of thrips that's here in Florida that has a
Yeah.
huge host range, damages a lot of different plants, and they don't even know exactly where it is. So we're going to be part of a program that's going to monitor within Hernando County, and we're going to check some test plots. These thrips really like milkweed and peppers and a couple of other plants. So we're probably going to have test plants around the county and check them. And if we ever see the thrips, we can report back that, hey, they're here and warn the public about it. But there's always something new happening.
those thrips are really small. I had a lady bring in a leaf, and it was obvious from the way that the top cells had been chewed off that it was insect and probably thrips. And said, no, I don't have an insect. This is a house plant, and it absolutely doesn't have anything. So I put it under the microscope, cranked it up, moved it around, and there's this little guy smiling up at us. I said, "Come here, take a look." And I thought she was going to pass out. She screams, "My God, there's bugs!" And it
In your house.
there were insects in her house that she didn't know about.
If people knew how many insects were in their house, it'd probably drive them mad. You have probably tens of thousands of insects in your house. Every single person does.
The little
And
insects
you-
that live in your eyebrows.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
don't freak them out too much.
I was at the eye doctor's office, sitting in the chair, waiting for him to come in. And I'm looking at this poster, and it's this stylized poster. I did not know eyebrow lice existed. and apparently, according to the poster, a third of people, usually elderly, have this eyebrow lice. I was like, by the time he came in, he said, "How are you?" I said, "Doing pretty good, but I just learned about eyebrow lice." Just the wonderful things you get to learn. And apparently
there's so many parasites out there, so many nematodes. I just started watching the show Monsters Inside Me again on YouTube because they have all the episodes on there. And my wife hates watching it with me because I'm listening real closely as they're describing the person. And they went to Belize on vacation. They come back and there's something that's making a hole in their head and this and that. And I'm like, it's a botfly. And then it turns out to be a botfly. I always try to guess what it is up front.
Mhm.
I'm right.
Kind of like Jeopardy.
50% of the time.
Jeopardy.
Well, you have those
Jeopardy inside of people.
You have those skin mites, like they're like I think they're called like the Demodex or whatever, and they're little microscopic mites that live in every single person's hair follicles, all over your body. Every single person in the entire world has them, unless you're Bubble Boy or something. It's like everyone has them. There's millions of them. They're microscopic, super tiny, and you have them all over you. So there's your comforting fact of the day.
Let's not even talk about the the insects you can see with your eye, and what the percentage of insect pieces can be in food and still pass.
It's like peanut butter. Can we talk about plants, please? We have.
It's very interesting. People will bring insects in, and every once in a while, they'll bring one in that I can't identify. And of course, Dr. Bill is one of these people that has an insect collection. He's an entomologist, knows about these things. So I go in and I say, "Can you identify that?" "Oh, that's a whatchamacrack." And he said, "I don't have one of those in my collection. I got to have that. Give me that bug." So,
give me that bug.
Really make him excited. It's like Christmas if you find the right bug around here. So I really enjoy it.
A lot of things in our office here. And if any of you watching us, either live or recorded, has any kind of plant or insect related problems, if you have an insect in your house, we're more than happy to help identify them. If they're large enough that you can take a picture, if you have a fairly new smartphone, these things have really great cameras in them. And you can even get the little extra clip-on camera that goes over the lens to help magnify it. Or if you don't have that technology, just put it in a container. And we've seen stuff come in every container imaginable. City of Brooksville workers caught a native wasp. They made holes in one of the City of Brooksville parks, and they were around the swing sets where the kids all played. And he called me on the phone. He said, "We have these wasps flying in and out of little holes." I said, "Well, I really can't say for sure what kind of wasp it is without having one." 20 minutes later, he walked in the door. They had caught one in a Gatorade bottle. Still had a little bit of Gatorade in the bottom.
Sugar.
But it was a scalded fly. It was a beneficial. It catches beetle larvae and feeds on them. But they make little holes in the ground, and they had a bunch of holes in the ground underneath the swing set because it was nice and bare, sandy there, good spot for them. But I've seen every kind of bug in every container imaginable, so feel free to bring them in. And if anybody has any plant questions, go ahead and ask in the comments. We're more than happy.
If you don't want us to talk about gross bugs, then you better put some plant questions, because I like talking about bugs.
Grasshoppers.
I have a non-gross bug story. I just saw it, because I'm retired now, so the news was on this morning. Which, by the way, Colby will tell you too, we're not the Tampa Bay area up here. We don't get Tampa Bay news. We get Orlando.
Orlando, what is it? Suburban area. Yeah. That's how our high school football is set up too, which is kind of interesting. That you play against Orlando teams, even though Tampa is.
Yeah, but I mean,
I think is a little more accessible. You're on 75. I don't get it, but anyways.
Yeah, I mean, we're half an hour from Brooksville, but what's interesting, half an hour to get to like the north side of Brooksville. Good hour to get anywhere in Spring Hill because the traffic starts right then. Anyway, senior in Oviedo High School, Bill's wife will be familiar with. She, I didn't catch it all, but she's doing a project where she is teaching native bees. No, I'm sorry. She's teaching non-native bees to recognize native plants. And with her instructor, and they're using this, I didn't catch which orchid, whether it was the greenfly orchid or what. I didn't catch that, which orchid, but it has all the plant profiles, known that they need to do this experiment. And she catches them and then she freezes them for like a minute to anesthetize them so that she can handle them. And it's like itsy bitsy little harnesses. And I guess she is like, I don't know what happens after that. I imagine she's like saying, hey, look at this pollen or whatever to get it in their, in their system that this is a plant they should get to know. And, that's just the beginning stages of, I guess, teaching non-native bees to how pollinate native plants. And I would think being, senior from Oviedo and having this wonderful start already that, she's a shoo-in at UF, but she says all her applications are in Scotland. That's where she wants to study. So,
I actually put the link to the Seminole County School District article about her project that kind of explains it a little bit if anyone's interested.
That's great.
Man, those kids over at Oviedo High School have done some pretty crazy science fair projects. When I was at UCF, they were always at our, UCF is not in Orlando, it's in Oviedo, but there was always a bunch of kids that were over there in our various different labs doing all kinds of stuff. And I'd come into my lab class and there'd be a bunch of high schoolers just like gathering all their stuff up. Oh, we got to get out of here, we're in the way. And just doing they did a lot of stuff with fruit flies, I remember, which everybody does, but they were doing stuff that was more advanced than what we were doing in my genetics lab. And I was like, that's nuts.
Yeah, well, it's good.
I saw a project that somebody did, and it involved tracking flying insects like flying beetles, and they could put a little tracking unit on them. So, I mean, what we could do right now is pretty amazing. And if you think about, technology is going like crazy right now, it's always something happening.
I got
science fair.
Go ahead. No, you're still talking bees, so go ahead.
Science fair, well, kind of. Science fair is one of those things that I love science fair. If I don't think there's any kids watching, but if you are, do science fair. Get your grandkids to do science fair. Get your kids to do science fair. It is such a good thing that teaches you so much. You make a lot of good connections. It helped me go to college. So really, it's just one of those things that I think is a wonderful program that everyone should participate in.
Science fairs and 4-H. 4-H does a lot to, and you don't have to. It's not all sows, cows, and plows. What goes along with your 4-H project, no matter what it is, and it can be anything. is they teach you a lot of public speaking, which is also what the science fair does. So, so that the science fair teaches you the scientific method and all of that, and feeling comfortable speaking to adults. 4-H actually has, a huge part of their program. They call it, county events and then district events. And they have kids standing up there discussing their projects and being judged on it. So, it's a great thing, whether you're homeschooled or in a regular school. A lot of kids who have gone through those public speaking things, they end up in college and they end up in jobs like Colby's and Bill's. And so,
As a matter of fact, next Wednesday, I have to go help judge the Florida State Science Fair. So they take the winners from the individual schools and they go off and compete in Lakeland. And it's huge. There's a lot of categories, a lot of grades, a lot of judges. I've done it for a number of years. Our Sea Grant agent, Brittany Hall Scharf, always goes and volunteers a day to help judge it. They're always looking for more judges also, because they need so many judges to judge all these projects in so many areas.
Yeah, I went back and judged our regional science fair one time, and I went back and judged our school science fair so many times. But I've done that state science fair. I did that that would have been 2017. Doing talking about removing.
I'm in there judging it, so.
I'm removing I was removing textile dye from water using orange peels. It was so much. It was so difficult, but it really pretty much anything you think of can be a science fair project if you put your mind to it. And and I did mine through just my high school.
Right.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is make sure
high school go to the state competition. The winners from the state competition go on to the national competition. And if you win a category in the national competition, you're definitely getting some kind of scholarships or some kind of opportunity.
Bill and Bernie have both told me stories where they tried to ask kids questions who didn't know a thing. So make sure it is your child's project, because that will be rooted out if it's your project for your child.
Pretty sad. The question on repotting a Queen of the Night, are you familiar with that plant, Bill?
Honestly, no.
It's Sirius, a night blooming Sirius.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, a cactus. Is it a cactus?
I think Queen of the Night is, it puts out that at night, that white big flower. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of cacti.
It is in the cactus family.
That grow well here in Florida, and the majority of them, if not all of them, bloom at night. You have everything from edible ones to not so edible ones. Most of them are hedge cacti, and they're beautiful when they flower. If you go out there late at night when they're flowering, they attract moths, they attract beetles at night. There's a whole little ecosystem that's out at night while you're inside in bed that are out there visiting flowers. And
I want to know how to propagate them.
Most of those cacti, if you break off a section of it, let it air dry for about 24 to 48 hours, and then pot it up in a pot of clean potting soil and keep it moist. Most of them root very, very easily.
We have a master gardener that is very, very familiar with the plant. The night blooming Cereus, he's done a lot of work with them. He's got several in his garden. It's beautiful. When? Yeah. And if you will send me your contact information, I'll get with Wynn and get you any kind of information you'd like on the plant. There is somebody in our system that knows. We're very fortunate. We have people that are available to us that know some things. Nobody knows everything in this group, but there are people that
I thought you did, Bernie.
Well,
I tell people you do.
Yeah, well, I
Don't
admit
tell 'em I know everything. 'Cause
I am
don't.
not a flower person. I know the technical things on flowers, but I don't know the flower part of flowers. So,
Yeah.
and that's not what excites me. I like the technical part. Flowers are pretty, but they got butterflies on them, and butterflies get it too. And they attack and all that stuff. So I
What?
kind of avoid flowers. Don't you remember when you were 3 years old, the butterflies attacking and you didn't know what to do? You see, I remember those
No.
things when I was
No.
but,
I think Bernie needs a different type of group to discuss his childhood butterfly trauma.
Yep.
Was never attacked by a butterfly.
well, maybe I wasn't really, but it makes a good story. You have to admit.
Although, in one of my presentations, and I stole the photograph from, I think it was Gina at when she was at the Chinsegat Conservation Center, and I would use it to try and tell people that how evolution was changing. We now have killer butterflies, and because you see a butterfly on top of a broken in half black snake that's draped over a sign.
I
The
think I
butterfly
still
was
have
on
that
top
picture
of it.
somewhere.
Yeah. The snake was in a bird of prey's mouth who happened to drop it on that sign. A butterfly, one thing you want to think of them as lovely and pixie-like and everything, and they are, but carcasses have a lot of great minerals, as does poop. You haven't discussed poop in quite a while, and I have to come on here and discuss
No,
poop.
we
I'm sure
haven't. We've really
where
kind of
Corey
strayed away
is.
from that, I guess.
Yes, but that's just how correlation is not necessarily causation, but how you can start rumors. But I don't know. Now that Bernie has butterfly trauma, maybe there's more to it than we know. Did it pick you up and fly away with you? Was that?
No, it just kind of attacked my face.
Oh, well, what was that? That's why she's not answering. Anne-Marie, that's why you're not getting your link.
I think Teresa came in for our 4th anniversary here.
Silly string this time.
Silly string all over my office now to go with the little pieces of paper from last year's.
Yeah, you're never gonna get all that up.
Happy anniversary, everybody.
Yay.
4 years of being on here almost every week, answering your questions, having fun in the process. Not normally this much fun. Oh, this stuff stinks too.
Oh yeah.
You better open a window. I think that's like fumigous.
Okay, Teresa, find
Let me try to
Anne-Marie's
get
link
Oh, she
now.
ran
Well,
off. She's not here anymore. So
about night blooming secrets. Apparently, that's why she didn't put it up. She was busy.
Oh, the stuff is sticky. It's all over and it's wet. Ow.
Oh no! Now,
Oh,
Colby, we better be glad we're not there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's gonna come in here and bother me. Like I said, no one's here today.
Now, so
Goodness.
Thank
Okay,
you
now.
for helping us celebrate our anniversary here. Oh, she got Bernie too. So
That's so gross. It's an
That's
attack
okay.
spider. It's an attack
perfect for
spider.
Facebook Reels.
Oh well.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm just glad we have somebody who comes and cleans the office. I guess I'll leave all this.
Yeah, they're not going to be
It's on
very
my
happy.
walls.
No.
And that's not even in the kid area where they could blame some 4-H event.
I'll blame somebody else.
What were
No.
you guys doing?
I have no doubt that Teresa will stay like all night long to clean it up because she's like that.
Last year, she had the great big popper with the confetti.
Yeah.
And if I look really hard, I know back in the corner there's still little pieces of confetti, and probably always will be. So
There always will be. It's like Legos or light bright pieces.
Glitter.
When glitter,
yeah.
you never
You
get
get
rid of.
glitter somewhere, you're never getting it out.
I'm sure the house that we raised our children in has light bright pieces and Legos like stuck in the track in corners.
There's a half a crayon somewhere on the property.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Back to the bugs story.
Yeah. And if you have any
I got a
questions, go
phone
ahead and put them in
call.
the comments.
I got a phone call this week about someone wanting advice about the caterpillars, the toxic moths. And I basically had the, discussion with him. He lives on 5 acres, and I was like, you can't reasonably get up in those trees and spray anything.
Not safely. No.
No. And also, he lives there to enjoy the paradise that he's in. And I'm like, you will kill all of the good things as well as these bad, things. So I told him there's not much to do except wait it out. But I said I was surprised because I'm here under all these oaks that I haven't been inundated. And then I took the dog out and I had to send him pictures of 2 that I found. And I'm like, you did this. You put this out in the universe. But
It
I did
seems
find
like it's a normal year for them. So if you have a lot of oak trees, you're going to have at least some caterpillars.
Right. And I guess his concern was because he asked, I heard they were harmful for the trees. I'm like, no, I don't know if they're native. I guess they're native. They're just part of the process here. So it's not like an up north gypsy moth or anything. It's if you have an extremely young tree, maybe they'll defoliate it, maybe. But it is really early in the season, so the tree has all its sugars and everything. It's just like getting a haircut. It's going to put everything back out. They're really just annoying for us. And when they start their cocoons, that's even more annoying. But pressure water.
They're going to be gone in just a few weeks. So
you're talking about
they'll be gone when you get back.
Tussock moths, the little
yes,
the little furry caterpillars.
And they
fall out of oak trees.
They're not like puss caterpillars that really, really sting or anything, but they can be an irritant. And this person said, he noticed because one got like right in his, the inside of his elbow here, and it started to get a little irritated. But do anything to like its hands. But
I think so. I've lived here my entire life. I get a little. I'm a little more sensitive to a lot of like ant stings, bee stings, all that stuff. I got so many EpiPens. With those, it's one of those like you just deal with them. There's nothing you can do. If you see one on, you get it off. But when I get them things on me, I break out in big old hives, and it's never any fun. However, they're only around for a little while, and are you gonna inundate your whole area with chemical to get rid of them for no reason? I don't think so.
That's not, and UF does not recommend that either. And whatever you're gonna find, maybe massive amounts of BT or something. I don't know what you would even use, but then you're gonna kill your good caterpillars. So why do that? And your oak trees hosts how many thousands of species? You just don't want to. That's not something you want to do. Just got to put up with it. I can tell you and this was years and years and years ago, 30 some years ago. I can tell you that washing them down off your house, don't tell Alice, Colby, with the hose, they think that's fun. They're like, wee, a water slide. Let me crawl up and have you do that again. So that's not going to work. There's not much you can really do. Just wait it out. And when they put those caterpillars all over anything and everything, that's the time you can try and pressure wash them off or use a spatula even. Not one you're going to use in your kitchen.
And then clean up the mess and remains. The problem is most people never notice them until they start either dropping out of the trees or climbing down the trunk. At that
Right.
point, they're pretty much done feeding. They're
Yeah.
looking for a spot to make a cocoon.
Hmm.
So any kind of treatments you're going to apply, they're not going to eat it because they're not hungry anymore. They were eating the leaves in your oak tree up above your head for weeks, and you never noticed.
Right.
Because oak trees are so big, they have so many leaves.
They
How
must like
many
the
leaves
new
do you
growth.
go up in your trees and search for caterpillars? Nobody does.
They must like that tender new growth because that's the time they come out when
Yeah.
you are, you have all the dead oak, live oak leaves, that's another story I'll tell you, all over the ground. And then shortly thereafter, those caterpillars come. So they must be munching that lovely new growth because that's why it's a live oak, doesn't lose its leaves until the new leaves come and push them out like kids' teeth. So, what I was just going to tell you about the oak leaves, we're probably we're the bad residents here because we're probably the only ones who aren't crazily raking up those oak leaves, and some of them are crazily raking them up to bare sand. What's
Yeah.
the point
Yeah.
here? The mowers come, they break them up. They're going to turn into soil, and then they complain because the maintenance people can't get around to get all the piles they put in front of their places quick enough. So just leave them be.
Yeah, don't
I don't
assess
know. I don't know that living in Sumter County, I ever raked my yard a single time ever.
Yeah. Well, the residents of this RV park, I would venture to say there might be one or two people from Sumter County in the park. So they see leaves, they want to rake them. I mean, I thought about maybe raking them into the flower beds or something.
They make
But-
great mulch.
Yeah.
They
But I
break
don't
down
really
within
have-
a few months.
I don't really have, I don't know what they are, some kind of house planty things out front. I don't have much, and it's killing me because I want to plant stuff, but it's spring, it's the dry season, supposed to be the dry season, and we'll be leaving. So it's stupid to plant something and then
Yeah, if you're
have
not here
no
to
way
help
of
care for
watering it.
God
What we're
forbid,
going to
water.
do is we have to come back in June for 10 days or so for graduation. That's when I'm going to go out and get some things to plant because hopefully then God will help me water them in the rest of the summer. There's tips like that and other things that I can present, Bill, if you want me to and redo that Florida Friendly Landscaping for the part-time resident. You ever
No,
want
that'd
to
be great. I've done very few classes, and as a matter of fact, I do have 2 recordings I need to get to John, but I haven't sent him a video in, it seems like, forever. So
That is
get
a
a hold of
course
me about
unless
that.
Colby wants to do it. I'm not going to.
Hey,
Step on his
you do whatever you want to do. I'm all good.
Okay, good. Good.
And we got a couple questions on here. Diana says, last season my green beans did good. This time they're not sprouting. If the seeds are really old, they're not going to sprout very well, or maybe not at all. I planted green beans and I bought some new fresh seeds, and they all came right up within maybe 7 days or less. I had some really old bean seeds. I planted a whole bunch of them. One plant has come up. That's it. So I need to get rid of those seeds. They're just too old. So if you're using old seeds, that might be the reason why. Otherwise, beans can take 7 to 10 days to come up. Got to keep them well watered. It rained all night last night and today, so that's going to help them. Diana also followed Bernie's advice and put down pre-emergent. So hoping the sand spurs are not as bad this year. That'll help.
That'll
There-
definitely help. If you do that every year, the pre-emergent thing takes about 3 years to really function. If you look at it mathematically, say it's 90% effective, and you've got 1,000 seeds, that means that at the end of the first year, you still got 100 seeds, and these things can germinate 10 years out. So you you put down pre-emergent the next year, and you go from 100 seeds down to 10 seeds, and then the next year, pretty much the plants are gone. And sandburrs are a plant that really like crappy conditions. If you fertilize and mow and do a nice job on the lawn, they tend to fade out eventually anyway. So the pre-emergent thing and just decent lawn maintenance does wipe them out. It's not an overnight thing. They didn't get there overnight. It took them a while to spread. It's going to take them a little while to go away. But that is definitely the correct approach. And I
Sunny
wish
and
you well.
sandy.
You may see more dramatic results than what I'm telling you, but if the results are a little slower, that's not an uncommon thing.
Yeah, timing is very important with pre-emergence also.
It's everything. If the plant starts, it's too late.
Yeah. Andrew Dave uses gloves when she's hand picking off those grasshoppers. That works very well. Hand pick them off now while they're little and while they're all together. And if you do that diligently, because they only have one generation a year, over the next couple of years, you're going to have fewer and fewer and fewer grasshoppers. And then you get to a point where you're not complaining about grasshoppers because you basically have none or very, very few.
Well, Bill and I have had many conversations about lubber grasshoppers because we're weird people and we talk about this stuff even not when a camera is going. We've never seen them be huge problems. Now, there was that one situation where Bill got the phone call saying these grasshoppers ate my entire landscape in that gated community. I think it was where the two of you may go and give classes now. But turns out with some research, their entire landscape was amaryllis. Well, if you put the same kind of plant, and they love, love, love bulb plants. That's their favorite go-to thing. They're going to go after your amaryllis. They're going to go after your daylilies. I don't know. Do they go after the, what are those leafy things with the bulbs? I just lost their name.
They like crinum lilies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Teresa talks about that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Palladiums. That's what I'm thinking of. But if you have
not that I've ever seen.
If you have a diversity, you may see them. They may take a bite, but they're not going to eat your entire landscape. I've never seen them do that in a diverse landscape.
And what usually turns out is they have a lot of different things that are eating a lot of different plants, but because the grasshoppers are so noticeable and visible, the grasshoppers get blamed for everything that goes bad in their yard. And the grasshoppers may not be the ones causing those bad things to happen.
Yeah, they get blamed for lawn problems. They don't, the southern lubber grasshoppers don't eat lawns. They're not interested in grass. Not saying another type.
They're not famous for being a major pest of roses either. If you have an awful lot of them, the funny thing is with lubber grasshoppers, you may see a whole bunch of them on a plant, and they may not be eating the plant at all. I have an American holly hedge out in front of the house. Every year it has lubbers, and they sit on it from now all the way through summer. I've never seen one eat a single leaf. Nothing eats that holly. The leaves are like leather. So, for insects, probably not very tasty. They're really thick and probably hard to chew. So even though I got grasshoppers sitting on it, they don't do any damage. So I just pass on by and I don't worry about them. They're there.
When they're very little, they're black with a little yellow stripe. But if you catch them in the first 20 minutes of their life, they're red. And the first time I had somebody show up with a red grasshopper, they didn't bring one, but they came in and they're explaining they have these red grasshoppers. And they go back and they can't find any. So we called the university and said, we've got this new grasshopper. It's red. And they said, well, you ate it? first 20 minutes of life, the lubber grasshoppers can be red. So if you run across red grasshoppers, don't go running in and call a newspaper, because by the time they get there, they're going to be black with a yellow stripe. So.
Sorry, I'm fighting silly putty here.
Okay. Yeah, I pretty well got it
And
cleaned
will
up.
be.
Little left. We also have American bird grasshopper is fairly common, but everybody sees the lubbers. They're big, and that's what they think of when they think of grasshoppers.
So Bill has something eating his rose leaves. Rabbits could eat brand new rose leaves. Roses, they get caterpillars, they get a variety of different insects, and you could have lubbers eating some, but they're not really known for being a huge pest and like defoliating roses and really requiring major control.
You'd have to.
Are worse on roses than most animals.
Except deer.
Yeah, deer are bad, but it depends on where you live. If you're in the middle of town, you probably don't have deer. If you live out where I do,
you're not getting any guavas off those trees.
Who gets the fruit off the plant this year, me or the deer? So I hadn't seen deer until one day they showed up and stripped the tree and left. So they're good at that.
See, we have a question here from Claudia. She says her land is on an old lime rock mine, very loamy clay. If I put raised beds in, will the pH be affected by the lime base? Not really, because if you're putting in raised beds, you're bringing in some type of soil to fill the beds. Mm-hmm. Depending on what you grow in the raised beds, if it's vegetables, larger vegetables do have larger roots and they are going to go down, but they're probably, if your raised beds are at least 12 inches high on the side, the roots really won't be getting into the lime rock very much. If you're planting larger ornamentals, citrus trees or something larger, really with most plants, the majority of the roots are within like the top 12 inches tops.
So your raised beds want to be at least that high.
Yeah.
Don't just do only landscape timber high. Keep going up. So it.
Yeah. So no, you shouldn't have any great big problem. One problem that people with raised beds could have is, and they're not normally that big of a problem in very rocky lime rock type soils, but if you have a problem with nematodes and you put out a raised bed garden where the bed and the soil are just sitting on top of the native soil, nematodes over time can move up into your raised beds.
So would you suggest putting down like a plastic sheet between the native soil and her raised bed soil?
You need drainage. So now if it rains heavily, your raised bed is just going to be a big box of mud.
That's true.
Most screening, the holes
are kind of
large enough for a nematode to go through. Nematodes can be very, very, very small. So screening would help.
Maybe she should take the summer. She could take the summer to solarize it.
That helps.
And then start her raised bed in the fall for a fall crop.
Yeah. Solarizing helps with nematodes. It kind of drives them away for a while, but they come back because they can and do move through the soil.
Yeah, I would think that it probably is not going to be a nematode problem, though. The areas that had a lot of citrus tend to have a lot of nematodes. And then after that, at least in our county, it tends to fade off pretty quick. The areas that are sugar sand have almost nothing living in them.
So we got a couple questions here. I see Corey is with us today and he's asking, what am I planting this week? I planted a ton of beans. green beans, yellow beans, and also the large flat-potted yellow pole beans, a variety that I've never grown before, because I did not start lots of tomatoes and peppers and other things early enough this year. I have just been too busy at work. So I looked out there. It's like, darn, I don't have any transplants started. They should have been, well along at this point. What can I put in that I'm going to be able to get something off of and eat? So I went really, really heavy with beans this year. I guess if I get a really good crop, I'm going to can some. I've never canned beans before, but I've heard they come out really well.
Yeah.
Like a little firmer and crispier than if you freeze them, although I've frozen beans before and I think they come out just fine also. So yeah, I'm just going with beans right now. I'm waiting for the Hernando County solid waste department to get their composting operation cranked up, and hopefully I'll get some compost from them to work in the garden before next fall. And if I do, I should have a very, very good, productive fall garden next year. Because I live in Spring Hill and I've been making compost and working it in, and my soil looks better, but it doesn't look great yet. And I still have a nematode problem. Not terrible. I'm able to grow things, but tomatoes and peppers, if they've been in the ground for a while, when I pull them up, there's definite nematode damage. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I want to be like a test subject for their compost to see.
Is it really? It's going to be ready?
They have test piles right now, so they're practicing. So I get some of their practice compost, hopefully.
Okay, cool.
And I was just hoping to get a couple buckets worth, because I grow vegetables in containers also, 5-gallon pots, 5-gallon buckets with holes drilled in them for drainage. So I was going to work compost in them just to see how well it works.
Oh, and for anyone who might be interested, since you're talking about the composting program, it reminded me, I heard from Carmen Bruno a week or so ago. I know Leanna's doing a fantastic job, but for those who might be wondering about Carmen, he is the Director of Solid Waste for the University of Florida now. And he is, he's commuting, but he lives in Crystal River, so it's not quite as bad as we would imagine.
Back roads.
Yeah, and doing really well, and he really likes it and is very happy. So thought I'd spread that word on.
I heard he's very happy up there also. Leanna speaks with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's missed. Going back to solarization, we have a comment that if you solarize, you're going to kill all the good beneficial things too. Technically, yes, you do. But you're kind of weighing the positives with the negatives. Solarization, if you do it correctly, at least in the top couple inches of soil, will kill weed seeds. It kills bad fungi and bad bacteria. It kills the good stuff also. But after you pull back the cover, work in some compost, and you're ready to start planting stuff after it's been solarized, the good stuff will come back faster than the bad stuff. And with nematodes, a lot of them are beneficial. They just eat bacteria and fungi, and they eat each other. So good nematodes can eat the bad nematodes. So they're gone temporarily also, but so are the bad ones. So you're kind of weighing there's nothing is 100% silver bullet perfect.
Right.
So solarization, even though it does dent back your beneficial bacteria, that does come back. It's not like the soil stays sterile for very long.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that in the past 5 years, farmers have really taken to using what they call it naturals, but biological products where they're putting something live in the soil to get the level up quicker. And it's amazing how that will really help output. You know, when I was young, we had some property that was farmed, and if they got 90 bushels an acre of corn, you know, that got you a prize. You were the greatest farmer in the whole world. And now they've got farms that are cranking out 300 bushel of corn an acre, and it's because the things the new techniques. We've got products that stop the early diseases, and we've got the chemistry available to determine exactly what fertilizers are going to be best for this area. And so they go do a soil test, and 100 feet away, they use a different fertilizer mix because that's different 100 feet away than it is here. And the farm people are really doing tremendous research, and to be a farmer anymore, you have to be almost a scientist. It's
You would, yeah. They're
Yeah,
working on they're working on drones with AI for crops, to like go through and know what plant they should spray the herbicide on and what they shouldn't, all this,
yeah, and they've got 75 different chemicals, or maybe it's 175 different chemicals now, and each crop requires a different set of chemicals, and the carryover of this year. So you have to think ahead. I'm going to put in beans this year, and I'm going to put in corn next year. So I can't use such and such because that wouldn't be good for the corn next year. But I can use this, which will be really great. And it's led to a lot of development that ends up being available to the homeowner. The research to make things grow is pretty much universal. So
yeah,
all of the things that we've got, really have occurred since the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
The weed control for homes and the biological control things, the insect control, the disease control for the fungicides and all those things, those weren't actually available until pretty much after World War II. So in a lifetime, farming has changed dramatically. And because farming has changed, just straight vegetable gardening has changed. And the things that we can plant now, we have so much more variety. And you look at what was used for planting, for landscaping 25 years ago, and so many of those plants are no longer available because we've got plants that are actually a lot better. If you have something that gets a blight after 10 years, that means that your landscaping is only going to last 10 years and it's going to turn brown or red or whatever. So now we have plants that are good for 25 years. And every time they do research, they come up with even more and more things. So,
and now we have robots, and we have drones, and we have AI. And I know, and this was years ago when I saw this in citrus groves. They fertilize it, and they take soil tests every X number of feet, and they program that into a remote control truck that, as it's going along, it varies the amount of fertilizer it's putting out. These trees don't need as much fertilizer, so we put out less. These trees need more. So there's just an amazing
very
amount
targeted.
of time very. And it's true, there are, if you're using biological means to control something like nematodes, first of all, there's a lot of different species of nematodes that could be in your soil. So they're not all bad, just certain ones are bad. Nematodes generally, the bad nematodes, which is their main problem one, is going to be root knot nematodes, like very sandy, dry, hot soil. So building up the organic matter with compost makes a less friendly neighborhood for them. Working in shellfish products like crab meal or lobster compost from the crab and lobster shells helps a little bit. There are beneficial nematodes that you can actually order online, mix with water, apply to the soil. They're going to help a little bit also. There's a product on the market that's made from the bark of a tree that naturally deters nematodes, kills some, but its main mode of action is not to try to kill all of them. It drives them off. It makes them stop feeding. So that helps a little bit. Also, you can grow marigolds, certain varieties of marigolds, but what you have to do is grow the marigolds, chop them up, and turn them into the soil to compost, because they release chemicals that, once again, nematodes don't like. So it's like if you have family coming to visit, if you make them real comfortable, they're never going to leave. You have to make them a little uncomfortable, because after a certain point, it's like, thanks so much for visiting. It's been great spending a couple days with you, but time for you to go.
Yeah, you chop up a couple, they
Really,
leave.
it's the same thing with nematodes. You just don't want to make them too
Bernie.
comfortable.
It was his
Thinking like,
saying.
no, family
Yeah.
can stay forever.
I'm glad you didn't hear what Bernie said. He doesn't have to repeat it.
We're getting kind of close to time here, but so if you guys have any last minute specific lawn and garden or plant or insect questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Lydia is trying to grow some Fresno peppers, but they're not growing well. She has them in a raised bed in the direct sun. What can I add in to boost their growth? Lydia, it depends on exactly where you live. If you had them grow, if you live in Central Florida, and if those peppers were growing outside over the winter, they were unhappy, because peppers don't like winter, although they wouldn't have been too unhappy this past winter. They don't like the cold. So if that's the problem, they're going to perk up and start to grow. So fertilize them lightly. Make sure they're evenly watered. Don't let them get too dry. Obviously, if it pours rain all night long, you can skip a day or two of watering them. But if you're trying to grow those peppers long term, they're going to perk up in the spring and give you peppers. Over the summer, they're going to look really unhappy once again, because it just gets too hot during the summer for peppers. And they'll perk up again in the fall and give you more peppers if you can keep them alive. And Lydia very quickly says she's in Nobleton. So yes, that would apply to you. They were unhappy growing outside during the winter. They're going to start doing a lot better, because they're going to be happier with this weather.
One of the things in raised beds is that they tend to change pH, because the salts and the fertilizer don't get flushed like they do in the soil. And you have to be careful. If the beds are getting old, you may either want to replace the soil, but a pH test for vegetables would be prudent after 2 or 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, and Corey points out that with those peppers, they need more warmth to uptake nutrients. They really like it to be hot, like sunny and fairly hot during the day, and then also warm at night. So even though peppers can be carried over, and some people have peppers that they've had for years, it's really difficult in the winter, because if they freeze, they're going to die. It's really difficult in the summer, because when it's really, really hot and humid, they might die also. They're going to get diseases more likely and die from that.
I saw a video, and I'll have to try to find it. But this guy had these raised beds on 4x4s with like the big casters that have tires, and he'd wheel them out there, leave them out there during the day. Every night he'd come, bop them back up on his driveway and push them in his garage.
Yeah.
I'll have to see if I can find it.
Didn't you have a friend who did that, Bernie?
Yeah, he took a little red wagon, built the sides up a little bit, filled it with dirt, put 2 tomato plants in. He'd pull it out during the day, push it back in an air-conditioned garage or heated garage at night. So they always had this perfect nighttime temperature and plenty of sun. He had year-round tomatoes, and they were nice and big. You can do heirlooms that way, because you got infinite amount of time for them to develop.
Yeah.
Or, if you just grow heirlooms here, about the time the plant gets out and starts going, it gets zapped from the heat. So it lets you buy several more months of grow time. You can have beautiful tomatoes doing that. By the way, I planted my token tomato plant. So I did garden this year. I have a
Good for
bucket with
you.
one plant, and it's doing well. It's got one little tomato on it. So
Is it too late now to start a tomato? I mean, a
it's too
transplant?
late to start them. If you can find some fairly good sized transplants, you could get a little, but they're going to stop producing. Let's say June
May.
10th.
Oh, okay.
So I'll give you till June 10th to get your last tomato. Well, how many tomatoes are you going to get if you plant? Even if you transplant, it's going to take it a month. You're only going to have a month for the thing to do any producing. So, yes, you could if you can find some transplants. The big box stores are so late. Usually, you can find some possible. If they're a foot and a half tall, go ahead. Don't count on them producing for any length of time, but you'll get something, and something is better than nothing if you like fresh tomatoes, and I do. I
Can
grew
you
up.
regrow that same plant? Can you like nurse it through and it start producing again in the fall?
It's
You can
not
try.
practical. It generally, if it's a big tomato plant, they're gone. There's just too many diseases and problems for tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes are not quite as finicky. They get very sick and poor during the summer, but a lot of times they'll recover in the fall, and you'll get 2 crops out of cherry tomatoes. In fact, I've seen them go basically 3 seasons here. So you can do that with the cherries. You can't do that with the big tomatoes. But I love when I was a kid, we would take salt shaker and go out to the tomatoes and just pick them off the vine, put salt on them, eat them. You'd go back in the house, your hands are all messy, your face is a mess, and it really felt good. So a lot of people in the South don't get to experience that, but a lot of people from the North know exactly what I'm talking about.
I was just going to say, but soon I'll be heading north and I could start a tomato plant.
You can. Now is the perfect time if you're north of Georgia.
I'm really north
Yeah.
of Georgia, yes.
Because here in Central Florida, by around mid-June, we have the tomato apocalypse, and that usually coincides with the beginning of the regular afternoon thunderstorms that rain from the afternoon into the evening, and humidity going up to essentially 100% 24 hours a day.
And
Both
when
of
it's
those things combined,
70 degrees at night, yeah.
to have a huge outbreak with diseases, and we don't want people out there soaking their plants every other day with fungicide to try to grow tomatoes when it's just the wrong time of year. You're probably going to lose that battle.
When the nighttime temperature is high enough, they'll set flowers, but they don't produce fruit. They don't pollinate. So
they throw their flowers off. Yeah.
So like with everything, there's somebody out there who has done it successfully, but as a general rule, not going to work very well.
But if you happen to have an air-conditioned garage, which not many people do, or an air-conditioned area that you want to roll your plant back and forth every single day, try it. That could be a fun experiment.
If you have a climate-controlled greenhouse, that's great. You can grow whatever you want, whenever you want it. And by all means, experiment and try different things. But for the normal backyard gardener, you're not going to be very successful doing that. It's a lot easier to start by following the basic rules. And then once you get that down and you're getting regular food out of your vegetable garden and out of your food forest and out of your front yard in an HOA, then experiment with other things and see what works for you and what doesn't.
I promise you, Corey is in his shed right now looking for something with wheels. Because he's going to try it.
Okay, guys, it looks like it's right about that time. And thank you so much for joining us for our 4th anniversary show. I know
Thank you for inviting me
here that we really enjoy doing this. I know Lily really enjoyed doing this.
I do. This is about one of the only things I miss about working. I don't miss a lot. I don't miss having to set up for events.
That reminds me, real quickly before we go. Saturday, April 20th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Please join us at the Master Gardener Nursery right off of 41 by the fairgrounds for our Earth Day celebration. We're going to have a ton of booths, a lot of fun stuff, some flora-friendly plants being sold by the Master Gardeners, and a lot of Master Gardeners there that would love to talk about plants. So, like I said, please join us there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That
You
is
reminded me.
the third annual Florida Friendly Earth Day. That was one of my favorite events. I didn't mind that event. I think because Bill and I had so much control over it. We were, he and I
Oh, I've pretty much been able to do exactly
Uh-huh.
what I wanted to do with it, and that's
Exactly.
wonderful.
Exactly. And it's very well worth going to. The people who have attended have very much liked it. If I was still going to be around, I would pop by, but I hope not to be around. It's starting to get
You'll be
really
up
hot,
north
but
going to the Amish market on Saturday morning, right?
I could.
Yeah.
I could. Yes.
Buying those heirloom tomatoes.
Yep.
Although it's going to be way early for them to have tomatoes up there, but
They don't really start till late Memorial Day, I think, planting tomatoes.
in Maryland, you put them in the ground in May,
Yeah.
and you're picking them July and August.
Right. Of course, things have changed. I mean, they barely had a winter, just like we barely had a winter. Well, first of all, I didn't plan on being down here this long. We have camper issues that we're trying to get straightened out with the dealership and the repairs. But so I planted tulips to come home to up there to surprise myself with, and they're coming up, and I just have to rely on my daughter's pictures of them. But for one thing, things are happening a little earlier, and we're down here a little longer than we intended. But that's okay. It's okay because I get to have lunch with my friend Nora and her husband, and
Yeah, that was very nice.
yeah,
After a hectic Friday.
yeah.
Okay, guys, looks like it's that time. So thank you so much once again. I really appreciate all of you tuning in, and hopefully all of you are benefiting from this. I know that we get a lot of your questions, and we do our very best to answer them in a way that you're able to implement those answers, suggestions, controls, whatever, and help you be a little bit more successful out in your garden. I know that we're always learning new things. And if you ask us a really hard question, I always joke about sending the hard ones to Bernie, but the really hard ones, we have an army of researchers and scientists and everybody else at the university behind us. And I forward those questions to them, and they truly know everything. So they're able to answer the more complicated questions. But anybody else got anything?
Nope.
Okay. Other than thank you and goodbye.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me for the anniversary.
Oh, you're very welcome. You can join back. Just let me know. I'll send you the link. You can join in. We don't have anything planned, so. So thanks
I'm
everybody. See
usually
you again next
available.
week.
Okay.